Hi, my name is Amanda Garner-Daring, and I'm the owner and director of Brookside Montessori, a Montessori early childhood program that's family-centered. Today's video is going to be talking about social competence, how to support emotional development, and the impact of stress on our youngest learners. Social competence refers to being able to relate to people in a variety of settings. Children have to learn when it's acceptably loud and to run, as well as when they should be quiet. Educators place social competence as a high priority. It's important that educators and families are working together to teach children that they should not be yelling in the classroom, that they can be using their yelling voices outside, they can use their running feet outside, and it is not safe to use their running feet inside the classroom. In 1991, Hardup illustrated the importance of social competence when he said, "Indeed, the single best childhood predictor of adult adaptation is not IQ, not school grades, and not classroom behavior, but rather the adequacy with which the child gets along with other children. Children who are generally disliked, who are aggressive and disruptive, who are unable to sustain close relationships with other children, and who cannot establish a place for themselves in this peer culture are seriously at risk." It can be rather time consuming and even overwhelming to think of the many ways and attributes that we should be encouraging and teaching social competence. The following is a list of attributes from McClellan and Katz, written in 1997. It's separated into individual attributes, social skill attributes, and peer relationship attributes. Firstly, the individual attributes. The child is usually in a positive mood. The child is not excessively dependent on adults and usually comes to the program willingly. The child usually copes with rebuffs adequately. The child shows the capacity to empathize. The child has positive relationships with one or two peers and shows the capacity to really care about them and miss them if they are absent. The child shows the capacity for humor. The child does not seem to be acutely lonely. Next, the social skills attributes. The child approaches others positively. The child expresses wishes and preferences clearly, gives reasons for their actions as well as their positions. The child asserts own rights and needs appropriately. The child is not easily intimidated by bullies. The child expresses frustrations and anger effectively and without escalating disagreements or harming others. The child gains access to ongoing groups at play and at work. The child enters ongoing discussion on the subject, makes relevant contributions to ongoing activities. The child takes turns fairly easily. The child shows interest in others, exchanges information with, and requests information from others appropriately. The child negotiates and compromises with others appropriately. The child does not draw inappropriate attention to self. The child accepts and enjoys peers and adults of ethnic groups other than his or her own. The child interacts non-verbally with other children with smiles, waves, and nods. Lastly, the peer relationship attributes. The child is usually accepted versus neglected or rejected by other children. The child is sometimes invited by other children to join them in play, friendship, and work. The child is named by other children as someone they are friends with or like to play with and work. Now, this list might seem overwhelmingly long. However, educators might consider printing up this list for each student and every day choosing a few attributes or a few students to observe and checking off each time the attribute is observed. This information can be dated and then stored in the student's portfolio and shared at a conference. Over time, you can note changes in the checklist as hopefully the checks become more and more as the child becomes older and continues throughout their preschool program. This checklist can serve as an important working document for each child's level of social competence. Supporting a child's socio-emotional development doesn't just happen. It's carefully guided conversations, lessons, and materials. An educator guides a child's sense of self, relationships with adults, and peer interactions. To build a child's sense of self, also called self-concept, an educator should talk about each child's success. Call them by their name, and remember that building sense of self takes time and repetition. Sense of self impacts a child's competence, worth, and sense of control. Next, to build adult-child relationships, educators should try to avoid power struggles, create an atmosphere of grace and courtesy, be interested in students' lives, ask students for help, and develop close, caring work relationships. The space should have inviting spaces for children to gather and feature artwork created by children in the classroom. Trusting relationships creates a safe space for children to learn. Lastly, to build peer relationships, it is important to have large amounts of time for children to play. Educators should pay attention to interaction so they can model pro-social behavior, tell others when they see pro-social behavior, help children label their feelings, and provide limits and outlets for feelings. When children play, they make friends, share and help, cooperate, follow rules, problem solve, and express feelings. Although children are very egocentric, it is important for children to build peer interactions through play. In general, the environment should have space to play together and gather, allow children to freely access their classroom, have materials that represent a wide variety of cultures, have cooperative games, block building, and art projects, difficult materials that require helpers, offer fewer items to encourage sharing, and books to educate about social skills. Educators can also use songs, community worker guest teachers, discussions, and group learning projects. Educators can be intentional to build a child's sense of self and relationships with others by conversation, materials, and lessons. We might not think that children have stress, but stress has always been a part of childhood. Making friends, going places, learning, and living with family are all examples of stress. However, there are many unnecessary stressors like family circumstances changing due to divorce or remarriage, early pressure to excel, media, such as violent media either intended for children or adults, child abuse and neglect, and being forced to grow up too quickly. These all contribute to a child's stress levels. Children need adults' help to work through their stress levels. Some ways might include being aware of when we hurry children, analyzing the effects of stress, ensuring children have adequate rest, nutrition, and conversations, taking time to have fun with children, respecting children, and encouraging play. Simple things can help children lead less stressful lives, which positively impact their development. In conclusion, social competence and social-emotional learning do not just happen. Educators need to be careful to create an environment, interactions, and materials that lead to a child's social-emotional development. Thank you for watching.